Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is digital anthropologist Brian Solis. He's our favorite expert on the impact of technology on our lives, our relationships, and our ability to adapt to this new kind of input. Specifically, the magic box of knowledge and distraction that we all keep in our pockets. It's the most powerful tool of information any generation of human being has had access to, and like a toddler with a matchbook, the access has dangers that we must not ignore. Now, Brian's been talking about the effect of the speed of technology and what it's done to our lives, our expectations, and the way we conduct business since way before anyone else. And he's authored a series of books, which are all available at briansolis.com, about the various ways our changing world has changed us, including, most recently, WTF, What's the Future of Business?, X, The Experience When Business Meets Design, and his latest book, Life Scale, How to Live a More Creative, Productive, and Happy Life. That is perhaps the most practical book for all of us walking around distractible. And he's going to talk more in depth about the subject today. Now, today is Wednesday, and there's just one more day to register and come out and support our favorite cause, Save the Brave. Read about him at savethebrave.org. By participating in the Simon R. Litke Memorial Golf Tournament at Temecula Creek Inn Golf Course. It's this Friday, October 4th. Save the Brave is a certified 501c3 nonprofit organization, and the tournament will help fund their ongoing mission to help veterans cope with post-traumatic stress. You can register for the tournament at savethebrave.org/event, and that link will be on our website. Do it fast. Tournament slots are almost full, and the tournament is this Friday. It's going to be a great time and a great way to put your phone away and soak up some real life and fresh air and be actually social with actual people. So, while you still have your phone in your hand, though, I'll shamelessly ask you to help us out for 2 minutes by rating and reviewing the Break It Down show, especially if you like us, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to find podcasts like ours. Every positive review helps more listeners find out about the show, and we always like to grow the tribe, and you can do that while you're still engaged, double duty, multitasking, while you listen to our guest today. Here's Brian Solis.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Brian Solis. I'm the author of Life Scale. I am here coming at you on the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, this is cool. So Brian was on Popping the Bubble with Sandra and I a while back. And if you don't know Brian's work, let me just tell you, he's got, by my count, about 8 books, and the most recent one being Life Scale. And Brian, the array of where you kind of started and where you're at now, it's a remarkable path. I wouldn't call it growth. I would just call it like this constant evolution as to how you see things. His book is called Life Scale, published by Wiley. They're friends of ours. And Brian has done us all a service by looking into how our new cyborg selves, our cell phones, our wearables, all these things, how they impact our lives in terms of our production, our creativity, our happiness. And this isn't your standard fare. Like, Brian, really thank you for writing this, because it does give us the chance to understand how to get up and how to get away from our phones, our alerts, how to manage our lives better, to give us the chance to, people always say work-life balance, but you also got to balance Brian and all of that stuff. So let's talk about the book and let's go from there.
Yeah, what an introduction. I really appreciate it. In fact, I think the last time when we sat down together in San Francisco, I was actually working on this book.
That sounds right. Yeah, you had just done some work for a major national brand, and you were talking about our kids and their cerebral cortex getting smaller from the devices and the access to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I think I shared a little bit about the international beauty brand that I was also doing research with about self-esteem and happiness in terms of how they view their own beauty on Instagram and Snapchat. It was a lot of eye-opening stuff. So parallel tracks and all ended up as the book Life Scale. And I'll tell you, one of the interesting things that I've learned since we last sat down together was, I was surprised by just how much work it was going to take, and it is still going to take, to get people to be aware of maybe the opportunity or the need to read a book like this. I was really, really, really taken aback by how few of us actually realize that we are distracted and the impacts of distraction in our world.
If fitness is primarily about the food that you intake, I would think, and I'm going to use the phone as the greater distractor, but phone, TV, wearable, all these things that quote unquote help us and improve our ability to be productive. Your book opens with realize what this thing is doing to you as well as for you. And I think that's just a great place to start with the premise of the book, because you do map out all these things, and it's reorientation, it's realizing all of these things that take where we're at and force us to kind of assess how we might do it better, or just assess what we're doing.
Yeah, in fact, very, very little of the book talks about the impact of technology on our lives. I only really needed, a chapter to kind of get in there and just kind of shake you and say, look at what we're doing to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was by design. So it's not really our fault per se, but now that what are we going to do differently moving forward? And what I had realized, and kind of telling the backstory here, is I was distracted. This book is the result of me trying to fix my life, because I was actually trying to write another book. And I was by no means an expert in how to fix your life. What I just couldn't find, however, was how to fix my life. There was a lot of stuff out there, like, yoga and meditation and mindfulness practices, and maybe even getting apps like Calm to help, or Headspace to help you kind of get into the right space. There were all kinds of techniques that you could use, you could practice, but none of them are really getting to the heart of the matter, which was the result of what technology has done to us when it's rewired our brains and our bodies, right? The chemistry involved with that was profound and actually upsetting too, considering the intentionality of how those chemicals were manipulated to get us hooked and get us essentially addicted, right? So part of it was fighting technology distractions. The other part in my research I ended up having to figure out was how to deal with the rewiring of ourselves and the chemistry of ourselves. And that's what took a really, really long time. And I was just completely both befuddled and also just shocked and disappointed at how little this has been studied up until this point. So the premise of me fixing my life was to actually write another book.
Yeah.
When and for those who don't know, I couldn't finish my other book, which is when I realized I had a problem and spent a year soul searching, trying to figure out that it wasn't writer's block. But long story short, I realized that if I need this book, and if I have to go through all of this research and work to find out what works and what doesn't work and put it together in what ended up becoming the Life Scale journey, then maybe other people might need the help too. And my friends at Wiley thankfully allowed me to throw them a curveball and write a very different book, of which I still carry around with me everywhere I go.
Let me say this about Wiley, too. They are masters of this very thing, taking professional people that have audiences and impact and pulling out of them what needs to be there. So maybe this wasn't the design, but this book, seriously, Brian, it's great. Let me just illustrate for my friends that are listening. You have this book. You're trying to get it done. And let's see if this sounds familiar to anybody. anything except for writing the book was getting done. Even stuff that were like prioritized things that you would never do, like clean the garage, mop the floor. So we've all done that where we have, everything else to do except for the work we have to do. I think we see this the same way. Back, you say it in the book. A lot of these things are based in ego. They're based in fear, and that we have to sit with this work, whether there's some kind of psychological barrier. I mean, because look, you know how to write. You've got 7 books at this point written. 1,000 words, you can do that. You can repeat it, so it's not writer's block. It is something else. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. The life scale journey is one that's continual, right? Essentially, what you're doing is you're taking a look at what it means to be alive today, right? Even though every single generation has had its technology disruption, where technology has helped for better or for worse define and change a generation, we are collectively the first series of generations, right? So matures down to centennials that have had to deal with this level of bombardment and essentially mass addiction without calling it addiction, right? So essentially, we're said another way, we're the first generations of human beings that are being completely rewired all at once without an instruction manual or anybody to essentially guide us through that process. And so you have 2 different camps within those groups of generations. You have folks like you and me who know what analog is like. Can talk about days where we used to play outside.
Yeah.
Or then you have kids who only know this, and so that chemistry that's happening in their body, that angst, that anxiety, that the self-doubt, self-esteem issues, that's just normal to them, and so there's no real help for them in everyday life, whether it's school or whether it's at their doctor or whether it's with whomever is their primary care, because the understanding of what's going on inside of them versus what's going inside of us is still kind of up in the air, right? And so what started as trying to get through and writing a book, actually turned out to be something much more profound. I think it was my purpose, and I had to go through the exercise of trying to define what my purpose was, which is what I share in the book, and what everybody I ask them to go through is essentially, we're living in an analog construct in incredibly disruptive times, and that construct is broken, meaning that it's dated. So our standards for happiness, our standards for success, our processes of learning, our operations of working, everything is just old and not actually designed for all of the stuff we have access to, all of the stuff that's happening to us, and then more importantly, all of the things that now that we're mindful about it all can intentionally move in new directions. So said another way, LifeScale ended up becoming a manual for a modern life, right? Here's your instruction guide. Let's reset everything. Now that you know all of these things, what are we going to do differently moving forward? It wasn't, I thought it was, hey, I just need to get back to where I was when I was creative and when I can focus. But then I realized, no. It's not about going back in time. This is about being awake and looking around us and saying, how can I use technology? Because I don't want to abandon it. I don't want to put my phone away. I need it to do the things now that I want to do with purpose. Now that I know what I know, how can I use technology to be greater than ever? How can I be more creative? How can I be more productive? How can I be happier? And that's what the journey ended up going after, was resetting your life for these times to say, you could do anything you want to do. So what do you want to do? Let's not live our lives to the standards of our parents and the standards that were passed down to their parents and so on and so forth, right? Because once we figure out what we could do, we can change our life and we can change everything about it, right? So if you look at centennials who are dealing with all of this crazy stuff, that distraction's just a way of life, that their brains are just completely hardwired, where our brains became hardwired to be distracted, to multitask, to work on all of these things, to feel the need for constant attention and validation, to sort of cast out this, what I call our selfie aspiration of not who we are, but who we project ourselves to be, then how would you change the education system? How would you change sort of the guidance counseling or therapy to deal with that brain and focus that brain in a certain way? Like, so all of these things now become possible because we're aware that we're living in different times and what our standards are holding us back against. So Life Scale is my manual for a digital life, but living an intentional life differently than we had been brought up, kind of raised to follow.
Yeah. What do you want to do? And then designing some kind of plan for that. No, that's fantastic. And so you say centennials. I so far, and these things move around. I like digital natives, which kind of goes to the conversation that we're having now is they've got a whole new road to hoe. We often talk here in our house about how we used to have to wait in line for things. Like, just stand there. Maybe you knew someone next to you. Maybe you struck up a conversation. Maybe you just stood there in your own thoughts. But concert tickets, registering for classes, just all these things where your world just slowed down to just simply waiting in line. And we didn't want to wait in lines, but that just was how it was. Now, when you wait in line, you're like, oh, well, let me check my bank balance. Oh, let me check with my friends on the internet. There's all these distractions. And the reason why I set all this up was, like, I flew back in from being in Missoula, seeing my aunt and uncle up in Montana, and a lady had turned her phone on, and she apparently keeps her alerts on. And so it was going bing, 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 bing. And I'm like, oh, my God, it sounds just like a slot machine, and so over the course of the day, these 40 or 50 dings and bongs must just be, when you hear it compressed into one, little short hunk of time. It was annoying as hell sitting on the shuttle with her, but two, like, it makes you realize just how much attention the phone takes away from you in a way that isn't truly productive. I mean, you can set up specific notifications, like you can make your email check less frequently or hit certain accounts and everything. But I think she had a wide open gate, and gosh, that's just got to be crushing to her concentration.
It's crushing to her concentration, and she doesn't even know it. And that's the challenge, is how do you sell a book about distraction to people who don't know that they're distracted? I mean, I didn't even know I needed this book. And one of the realities is that, on average, we get about 200 notifications a day. Notification management is just, I call it an attention hack, because it's not a solution. It's just sort of freeing up your mind to at least be able to move it in a particular direction. When you allow yourself to be distracted, it takes you time to get back to the headspace you were in before, or you just follow the rabbit hole, which most of us are doing these days, because the term multitasking is a misnomer. You're not actually working on multiple tasks at the same caliber you would if you were single tasking, right? What it simply is task switching, right? So whatever you're doing, and then you get a notification, you're expending, basically, we'll just call it fuel, because the chemicals in your brain that it takes to task switch are expended every time you do that. Every time that notification bings off, you're expending energy and fuel to do those things. And by the end of the day, you're just done. But between the beginning and the end of the day, essentially, your brain's getting thinner, your brain's getting tired, you're not doing things because you're having to accelerate all of these things to kind of keep going and keep up. That when you are doing work, you're prone to mistakes. You're actually damaging yourself. You're affecting your short-term memory and your long-term memory. All kinds of bad things, right? But we see it as sort of like a superpower, that we could do all of these things. Yet actually, it's our weakness.
Yeah,
and that's the fight that I'm trying to go out there and fight, but not, realizing that actually I can't win by telling people they're distracted. Hey, turn off your notifications. Like get off my lawn.
Yeah.
it's backing into the conversation, which became the subtitle of the book, which was How to Live a More Creative, Productive, and Happy Life. So if you saw it sitting on someone's desk, or if you saw it in a bookstore, it wouldn't say, hey, let's fight your digital distractions. I mean, it just says, yeah, who wouldn't want to be more creative, productive, or happy? And that's where I learned that the doorway was to have this conversation. But yeah, those notifications and our multitasking is exactly where we're debilitating ourselves.
The book is just full of thoughts and you call them hacks on how to get better at these things. Talking in terms of doing like a short run of production on a given task. Like right now, we're going to do this conversation for approximately 30 minutes, and then I'm going to work on publishing one of the 2 shows I have to publish this morning. And so a little more task orientation, and then also accept that as you build up the capacity to focus again, right? It takes some time. You have this desire, this addiction to do other things. I thought that was just eye-opening, Brian, because I have a lot of tasks to manage, right? I have to manage social media. I have to participate. I have to engage, because I have this social machine that I have to deal with. But I also have to do pre-production. I mean, heck, you and I, you think about the amount of time that we spent just trying to get together in this space, that times 400 other episodes, it's a lot of time spent. That task switching is really challenging for me as I try to get through because there's things I want to do, and they're all things I need to do, but what do I have to do? What must I do? And that's a real problem. And then let me add this element in as well. I have multiple shows to produce, right? I put 4 to 5 shows a week out. So if I just lock in, it becomes much more of a grind as I edit episode 5 for the week. So I've taken, on your counsel, I've taken to doing shorter bursts. Let's get through 15 minutes of editing, and maybe I'll eke out a couple extra minutes just to, increase the percentage of the show that I've done. But then I get up and I do something totally different. Maybe I'll go do a small chore around the house. Maybe I'll just go spend some time paying attention to my girlfriend. Whatever it is, I try to completely change how I approach my day. How am I doing by doing this, do you think?
That's great, because it's an intentional use of your time. I think one of the stories I just wrote about today was about regret and how we could have spent our time differently. The idea about this is that you're mindfully making decisions about what you're going to do, and as you do that, you're training yourself to get better at that. One of the techniques that I talk about in the book early on was kind of helping you get your brain ready to focus, to go through some of these deeper exercises, to learn how to spend more time on a project, to give yourself more to it, to train yourself to allow your brain to open up for greater creativity, whatever that creativity is. And the Pomodoro technique was one that worked for me, which is where you focus for 25 minutes on a single task and then take a 5-minute break and then do it again. The first time I tried it,
yeah.
It was a few minutes. It was ridiculous. I started to focus on a task. I did all the things that I asked you to do. Go to the bathroom, get your drink, whatever you need, turn off everything else, and focus. And within a few minutes, I had reached for my phone without a notification. It was just like muscle memory. Just reached for the phone. And so what you're doing is exactly right. You're literally reprogramming yourself to do these things for this amount of time, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And also, if you wanted to even, I did this, if you wanted to compare your work to previous work before these exercises, you see a stark difference.
Yeah. You also, I usually put the phone in the other room during these times of the day when I'm just focusing. I still have my laptop, right? Because that's where a lot of my work is, but I'm a toggler, so I'll alt-tab like crazy to get to different tasks, but I try to stay off of the internet, and that's really where my work is right now, is how do I avoid popping over to Twitter to tweet something when it's not a time for me to tweet. There's this great line in your book, I'm not sure if it's Brandon Crawford's or if it's yours, it's distraction is autonomy run amok. I love that. It's just so it's so
I don't think
fantastic.
that's my quote, but that is, and if it is, my goodness, I would be smart. But that is a great quote, and that's, I think, one of the challenges, that we're given this gift of information, we're given this gift of convenience, we're given this gift of access, and again, no one's there to sort of help us learn how to drink from the fire hose. I sort of liken it to, if you were to become a celebrity overnight, most of the time we're going to make all of the mistakes our favorite celebrities make, that we chastise them for, right? If you look at publications like TMZ or People or Us, most of the time they're talking about all of the mistakes celebrities are making in their life, right? It's oh, look at them, and we take sort of great like entertainment in being able to point at them, but we're doing the same exact things in our own world. We're making those types of mistakes because we need more followers, we need more likes, we need that more attention, and we don't see ourselves slipping, and more importantly, we don't see ourselves moving our center of reference. So every day that we live this life, our center of reference moves along with it, because, say, for example, last week you had 100 followers and that was good enough, but this week it's not.
Yeah.
You're doing more of the things to get that attention, to keep that lifestyle going, to feed your body those chemicals every single time you do this. So you're moving your center of reference, because now you're starting to do things differently than you would have done otherwise the week before, the year before.
Yeah.
And so that amok part about this is where the chaos is in our life. You're making decisions without any real moral foundation, any values, any sense of purpose, any sense of vision or mission or long-term focus that's literally dangerous, right? I mean,
Yeah.
The research I did on this was mind-blowing, right? But I can't tell these personal stories, but I can tell you my personal story. I was making decisions that were literally ruining my family and my relationship, and all kinds of things that in hindsight I can't even believe that I was doing. And so I ended up writing this quote in a story I wrote yesterday. I received a letter from someone who is a startup founder who his father was diagnosed with cancer and passed in 10 weeks. He talked about how he would regularly play golf with his father. He has a son that he keeps putting off time with to get his company going, and he realized what he would have given to play one more round with his father, and he's never going to say that about his son. He's going to make the time for his son. And one of I asked him if I could share that story, and one of the things that I wrote sort of at the beginning of sharing that story was what's important in the moment is quite frequently measured in the moment, and not against a greater construct of values, time, and purpose. And that's where the amok can get us.
You write in here, you say, procrastination is a subconscious attempt to avoid unpleasant emotions stirred up by the task we're meant to be doing. And that right there alone, just learning how to be resilient or develop resilience in those kind of things. Some of the things we have to do suck and they cause bad feelings. And that's why you procrastinate. But all of this stuff, like building attention, investing in your life. We talk about work-life balance, but that's kind of where the conversation stops. Like you write several times about your daughters in the book, and tucking them in at night and spending time. But you have to take care of several things. Yes, your career is of course essential, but you also have to look at your significant other. And you have to put time into them. Maybe they need something. Maybe the two of you just need to do nothing together. Just slow down for a moment and have some wine or, whatever it is. Read some books together. All of these things are individual efforts that if you don't account for them, you quickly run out of time in the day and you never get to them. So, constantly taxing your brain, not good for your brain or the rest of your body, because, the body is a system. And though it seems like a perpetual motion machine, you are taxing it. Like if you attack your liver with a lot of drinking, your liver functions at, let's say, 80%. Well, you do that over a timetable of 65 years, and all of a sudden your body's been poisoned a lot over all these things take management. Your relationship with your kids, with your peers, with your wife, your happiness. These things all actually require attention, and it blows me away when you think I don't have enough time to manage things. You're really often saying I don't have enough time to manage my life in a very specific way, not in this kind of arrayed focus with all of the things that invest in your happiness, right? So if you're not investing in your happiness, and you talk about this at one point in the book, and I can't find the page here, but I found that to be really valuable, to look at your body, your mind, your life as a system that needs provisioning in a variety of areas.
This is one of the more interesting challenges I had and still have, to be honest.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Challenges I had and still have, to be honest. It's like the food we eat, the way we exercise our bodies is essentially the way that we should. To say another way, right? If you have a car that you love, and you wash it and you keep it super maintained and everything's always clean and meticulous inside and has the best stereo system, you put the best gas in it and the best oil in it. The thing that's just mind blowing is that we don't do that for ourselves.
Yes. That,
in fact, there's psychological reasons why sometimes we don't. There's all kinds of other reasons why we don't keep up with it or promise that we will get to it. But yet that's the very thing that defines our core, our health, our wellness. And so fitness, food, information and technology, all of these things, how we use them isn't just about balance. It's about wellness and about being our best selves, right? Our true best selves. The hard thing is that it's a discipline, and most of us don't have that discipline. And also, it's about who we surround ourselves with, right? If everybody around us doesn't have that discipline, it makes having that discipline difficult, if not impossible. Plus, it's not you're the abnormal one in the group. So we have to kind of first see that what we're doing today, even though it's normal, doesn't mean it's right. And then two, I talk about this idea of surrounding ourselves with a board of directors, people who can inspire us to live the way we want to live and be, you don't have to be 100% health and wellness all the time, but if you're not able to see that the way that you live your life isn't the best for you and the best for those around you, we get lulled into this sense of complacency where we feel entitled to have this aspirational life or this aspirational attention, this aspirational validation because of the fact that we're just living this way when in fact we're not earning it. And that's at the core of a lot of this work, is that we feel entitled to the stuff that we're not doing the work for, but we have to do the work. And doing the work is what's hard, which is why a lot of us don't maintain health and fitness and strong diets. But in the end, we get out of it, we get out of life what we put into it.
Yeah, and I know I only got you for a couple more minutes, so let me just say a couple of things. A lot of us are running life at max capacity, between the, let's say, 50 to 60 hours a week we give to our job, including commute in there, supporting our kids' endeavors, which of course is essential, and just getting through the day-to-day things like, oh, I have to tighten up that doorknob and all that. You really do quickly run out of time, right? Like, it can be overwhelming. And you and I both know having a creative endeavor is it's fuel for everything in your life that you do. Pete Koch, who's a co-host on the show, and one of his best buddies is Dr. Huzanga, who talks about fitness and says if you do 90 minutes of exercise in a day, everything else you'll do at a higher level of efficiency because these workouts. So Pete says you have to do 28 hours of working out a month. And so you quickly can just simply run out of time. You have to have 7.5 to 8 hours sleep. You just have to. So what do we do, Brian? How do we manage all of these things? I just described a week that doesn't have enough time in it.
Yeah, no, there isn't enough time for everything. And if you don't, obviously the prescriptive time to do all of these things is sort of an ideal state, but even just making any time helps you. Like for example, the Pomodoro technique, making 25-minute bursts for work. You just get better and better and better, and I think what ends up happening over time. Well, I know what happens over time is you just get better at how you use your time. And remember, when you're distracted or when you're doing all these things or you're reaching for your phone, what might have taken you, let's just say, make it up, half an hour to do something is now going to take you over an hour to do something. And so you're literally wasting time, and it's a massive cost to that. One is emotional because you're frustrated that it took you that long to get it done, and you're not happy throughout the entire process. But you have to make the time. But to make the time, you have to go through the work that LifeScale teaches, which is who are you? Who do you want to be? What's your vision for that? What are your values? What's your purpose? What's your path to that? You literally create your LifeScale journey to get there. And along the way, you're making time for those things. You're building the discipline. You're keeping a schedule. You're writing these things down, and the exercises kind of get you to go through that. But it's not an overnight thing. It's just something that you continue to do and practice until it's just the new normal.
This is Brian Solis, briansolis.com. If you can't find him on his website, you can hit me. I will get you there. He's on Twitter. He's in a lot of places. But seriously, you guys, this book has helped me quite a bit in managing what I do. And it's one of those things where Brian, I keep going back to it because I keep pulling. There's so much insight in it and things where I can tune up how I life scale. So, and I'm just telling everybody, this is a fantastic book. Brian Solis, the book is called Lifesale, and it's published by Wiley, our friends over there. And I'm not getting paid to say this because it sounds like I am, but I'm telling you, get this book and start reading through it, and you will see we covered maybe the first 35 pages in this book. That's all we did in this time. The book is packed with things. So, Brian, thank you for coming on. Seriously, thank you, and come back again soon.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you. And thanks for reading the book, and thanks for sharing the story. And yes, please, if you do read the book, reach out to me. You can get the book on Amazon or your neighborhood bookstore. Keep those guys in business. And the URL is lifescaling.me.